Hello and welcome to Phil 210, Logic and Critical Reasoning. We are heading towards the conclusion of the course. I'm going to go all the way back to week 10, though, and you'll note that there is an overview in week 10. We have the link as usual, and then the video. Sometimes the videos don't really work. If they don't, always use the provided link. Now, in week 10, we looked at critical thinking, including the elements of it. We had a This Too video, which was a rather important research video. We will be including that in future weeks as well. But it's a good little basic review of some of the things you'll find on the final exam. We looked at fact checking. We considered the hoax of harvesting spaghetti. We looked at deontological ethical theory, particularly ethics in the sciences. We considered information based on our former institutional review board process. We also had an interview exercise for those campus-based students, more exam content, and we considered personhood versus objectification in terms of artificial intelligence and collaborative AI. Okay, then we went on to week 11. In week 11, primarily this week, there were no forums for the asynchronous learning community. For the campus-based, we moved the student-led seminar to the following week. We discussed beliefs in the supernatural. If you're in the spring version of this course, we'll be discussing something different during that time period. But the constant remains our discussion of Lost in the Mall and Implanted Memories experiment. And we looked at some of the ethics surrounding that original experiment, how it was created and conducted. We looked at some of the implications of that research and whether or not we thought it was ethical, the study, the original study, whether we thought we'd get it through an institutional review board of today. Looked at those things a little bit. In week 12, we have a video on online resources that's for everyone. We looked at the axiological problem of evil, having to do with values and ethics in terms of evil. We looked at concepts, primarily theological ones, of primary and secondary evil and compared those with a more secular view. We then looked at examples, in my way of thinking, of vile, unethical, and downright evil experiments that were done primarily in psychological studies. We looked at the Stanley Milgram obedience experiment, Philip Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment. We looked at John Watson's Little Albert experiment, the Monsters study from 1939, David Reimer case. We looked at the Robbers Cave experiment. And we considered Harlow's studies on attachment, which led us into discussions of the ethics of using other beings on our planet, animals and other creatures that we share our planet with, and looking at animal welfare. Animal welfare issues in relation to ethical experimentation and scientific inquiry. We also put Harlow's studies on attachment in the context of John Bowlby's attachment theory, institutionalized children case studies, the Romanian orphanage case studies, and the case of Jeannie. So I would again remind asynchronous learners to read through that information. And those who were in the campus-based, we discuss those ideas. Asynchronous learners, again, have a discussion of the problem of evil in their forums that they need to complete. We're going to move on now, though, to week 13. In week 13, students will be looking at personal volition, free will versus fatalism. Also, we have a review of all of the quizzes we've had this term. We have a little discussion of language and meaning. Asynchronous learners have a forum to complete. We have a student-led seminar in the campus-based course. We also discuss John Searle's work and his major contributions. Now, he was an influential American philosopher known primarily for his work in the philosophy of language and philosophy of mind. So we look at things like his speech acts discussion, intentionality, his Chinese room argument, his Biological Naturalism and Social Reality. We look at criticisms and controversies in relation to his work, and we focus particularly on the Chinese room argument in relation to artificial intelligence and the notion of consciousness. We looked at also that final question that in conclusion, yes, Cyril's argument can reopen the age-old philosophical questions about the nature of consciousness and our knowledge of it. It's an area of inquiry that sits at the intersection of philosophy, cognitive science, and AI research. This does not, however, or rather, this does, however, invite the question of whether or not our humanity-based experiential biases make it possible to adequately explore and understand AI. And then in our campus group, we opened it up for a group discussion. And what does the question of personal volition and free will, how does that enter into this discussion? So for those of you, though, who are asynchronous, you'll be talking about these questions in your forum, and your primary focus will be, free will. Do we have it or not? Are we responsible for our own actions or not? Is everything predetermined, or is it only the fate we make? All right, now let's move on to week 14. In week 14, you'll note that I've reminded us of the term paper guidelines and provided a possible outline. Again, I stress possible outline. There are a lot of different ways to structure your research paper. Just make sure that you do adhere to the basic guidelines. We also have information about the term paper, video tutorial. In the autumn, this is a Thanksgiving time period. In the spring, we have different holidays. So this week will be a little bit different in the spring than it would be in the autumn. But we'll continue to have as a constant the this too review, because it's a rather important nutshell of information about comparing the different ways that different communities of inquiry and vocation use critical thinking in the course of their work. Now, again, I'm pausing here on the guidelines for the term paper. If you have not gotten started on that term paper by now, this is the midnight hour, because during this week, we're getting in presentations. We're having a student-led seminar in week 15. That's the final seminar for the campus-based community. All work is due by the last day of classes, including that cumulative exam and the term paper. In week 15, the asynchronous students have quite a lot to do. They've got the mock jury trial to view, and then they have to answer in the forums how they would rule on that. Now, again, the asynchronous students do not have to make any presentations. So for them, they don't have to worry about this end of term presentation, but they do have to worry about getting their paper in. So I would say, again, I look forward to reading your research, all of you, asynchronous and campus-based, and I have appreciated the opportunity to work with all of you in this course. Thank you again for your time and attention. And if you have any questions at all about Phil 210, please do email me and or attend my office hour. Now, these hours change from term to term, but the link to the online space stays the same. All office hours are online. And again, I look forward to sharing ideas in the future. Thank you again, and good luck with all your future endeavors.